All right, well, we're going to do a little bit of testing today. I've got a brand new barrel on that's got maybe 50 rounds on it that I really didn't do anything with. I've got my good old Borden, I've got my March, we've got X-Ring stock, and I've got my Neo X here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is make sure that I get the barrel sighted in. So we're just, we got a piece of paper on the right. It's going to be really close, but I need to make sure that I get this zeroed for this barrel. So I've got my Garmin running, and I've also got the Andy scan with some brand new firmware on it. So it's that should be it right there. So we are dialed in. It doesn't always go that easily. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. But yeah, it looked like we were maybe, looks like half a minute, between half and a minute, because I forget what my first move was, and I was slightly below zero somewhere. So I don't know, just under a minute off of elevation, and it looks like about a minute, minute and a quarter on windage. So that should set us up nicely. I did end up putting a hole right through the middle of my test target, but that's okay. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and kind of foul out the gun with these four here, and then we're going to run a powder test through this barrel. Now I know roughly where this cartridge should be shooting. I'm guessing this barrel, because it's chambered the same as my others and others I've done this with, it's going to be really close in this powder range. I'm at 57.2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We're going to do 4 shot groups, and we're going to track velocity and see what happens here. So here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and use on the second row down, third one in, is where my first shot went. I'm going to use that as kind of my blow off here. And I don't remember what velocity I charged these blow offs at. But we're going to see if we can find something that it likes. Oh, one more. I don't love whatever that is. It's making a real nice diagonal, which is not great. So let's do this here. We're going to end that. Let's start a new one. And we're going to go ahead and do 57.2. And this is not like a real, intensive test. It's just to kind of see what the gun is liking, stuff like that. Oh, there we go. That's better. first one felt, I did something weird with that one. I'm sure it'll show up on camera and you guys can make fun of me for it. But it didn't feel right. So we got 3 through the same hole on that one. That was 57.2, and we're going to go to 3 here. These are pretty much in the same velocity as the last powder test. And this test is more about the velocities than the actual accuracy of it, but I still want a comparison. All right, and that one's looking good. Okay, now we're on 57.4. You can't really see it, but there is a better than average breeze out there right now. So that one went from a hole to a line. And I'm looking up at the trees, which you probably can't see. And, you know, they're moving a little bit. Probably not enough to cause that line, but definitely having a little bit of an influence. All right, and then we got 57.5. Definitely opening up. And we're way faster than I should be. Way faster. I don't like shooting up in these ranges. It tends to be more unstable. At least for me it does. All right, well, that was really ugly on all accounts. Speeds were all over the place. There was nothing good about that. All right, 57.6. So I know this is going to be faster than I want, but we're still going to test. I'm going to move over a line just so I have a little space. 29.68. I typically shoot about 30 feet slower than this. It definitely favored the low end. Again, it's more about looking at the velocities right now. But we're going to go back home. I'll pull down the target. I'll show you the data on from the chrono, and we'll take a look and see what it looks like. So here is our target, and I know this wasn't the most exciting thing to watch. I don't have a shot marker set up for this particular test because, to be honest, this is not nearly as important as getting the velocity data. But I did want to show you something that I take away from a test like this, and it's not necessarily the groups, because here's the thing. You probably saw that my bolt closing was pretty stiff, and that's because I was actually seated beyond hard jam. Like I was, I was having to seat the bolts a little bit. I had them out a little longer, and I'm going to be working my way back, but that's why the bolt was having, a hard time coming down. And you can see it pop sometimes, and that's because I had the bullets pretty far out there. They were about, what did I have them out at? Let me look here. They were about 10 thousandths past my hard jam spot, and that's for no other reason than it's just a starting point, and I'll be working backwards. But with the velocities, I showed you them as we were shooting, but and I know this isn't the easiest thing to see here. Let's do this. So here's the first 4 shots, and you can see that was the first one, and then the last 3, and then we have the next ones, and those are both, they're, aside from this weird thing, but I mean, like that's a really good 4-shot group, and that's a good 3-shot group. But the only thing that bothers me is that this was in the point of aim, whereas my point of aim was here, and it moved upwards, and then every subsequent shot group was in this upper left quadrant, more or less, because you can see there's a couple shots. I can't remember if that was 3 or 4. It looks like 3. So it looks like that was 1 shot in 3, and it was in this kind of upper left quadrant. These were, if you looked at the center of the group, in the upper left quadrant, upper left. The only thing I could attribute this to is that possibly if I had more ammo loaded at this velocity and was to shoot it later on, the gun warming up might have moved this up, but I don't know for sure. But what this tells me is that it's really stable, because I will say there are times where you do a powder test and aiming here, your quadrants will change. It'll sort of walk around, or it'll go back and forth, kind of, if you're looking at a fresh one, you'll kind of get targets where they kind of move around from side to side. And you can even see my blow-offs were in this upper left quadrant based on holding here. And it has nothing to do with where my scope is zeroed. Okay, so that's a different thing, because no matter where my scope is zeroed, there was the potential that the groups were going to walk in some relation to where my hold was. So this, I don't know. It's hard to say. And again, it's, I'm just hitting 100 rounds on this barrel, but it gives me a really good place to test. And it's easier if we kind of, let me grab a pen here. It's really easier if we sort of divide this into 2 speed ranges. So if we cut, let's see, we were at, so all these blow-offs were at 29, 24 average. And then I'm just going to write the last 2 digits. But then we went to 30, 34, and then it jumped dramatically. 52, 56, and 60. So there's sort of this line here between these groups where there is a substantial jump. And this is where it gets dangerous, loading in this range here. So if I load on the low end at 57.3 and it warms up outside, well, suddenly I'm going to be in kind of an unknown speed area. Like it's probably not going to be good. And then same thing here. If I load here and it gets colder, which I don't know, it was like 40 degrees, so I doubt that's going to happen, then we fall down. So then my next decision is, do I want to shoot this lower node, which is typically where I've been shooting my PRCW, which is right around 2720 to 2730, and it's been really, really accurate for me in that range. But obviously you can see that I've got a pretty stable velocity area up here too, and I've got friends that shoot right in this node and are very successful. For whatever it's worth, though, I will say that With my triple nickel, I have just found that this lower one has been a little more stable for me. But I know other people that are, better shooters than me that have found a pretty stable triple nickel node up here. So it's hard to say. There's a lot of variables that go into this, as we always talk about. But that's where I'm going to be at. So my goal is to load it out for my Tuesday night, which I don't, get a lot of time to do testing. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to move back off of hard jump or hard touch now, or hard jam rather. So I was about 10 thousandths past hard jam. I'm probably just going to load up, I don't know, probably 5 to 10 thousandths back of hard jam. I'll load up something. This was 57.2. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at a few other notes from earlier when I shot my previous stuff on this barrel just to see how much it's moving. But probably 57.1 is going to be my guess that I'll load up for my Tuesday night 600 yard at probably 5 to 10 thousandths back of hard jam. And we'll go from there. I'll definitely put some pictures up and hopefully be able to get some video over on my Patreon page. If I can get a video made for YouTube on it, I will. But it's tough at night. Not everything has enough light sensitivity to capture on camera the way that I'd really like to. But I do cover all of this kind of stuff over on my Patreon, which is nice because people can ask questions there and private message me and stuff like that. But I'm going to load that up. That's where I'm going to shoot it. Depending on how that does, I'll load up it or something similar based on my results for my 1,000-yard testing on Thursday. So thanks for following me on this little powder test that I was doing. And the last thing I'll leave you with is, now that I've got a little over 100 rounds on the barrel, my goal is to get it dialed in roughly 100, no more than 200 rounds, and validate that with some testing and stuff like that at 600 and 1,000. And then that barrel will probably just get put away, and I'll bring out another new barrel, because that will give me 2 really good shooting barrels at that point for me to decide for Southwest at the beginning of February or mid-February. So anyway, hope you guys have a great day. We will talk later. Have a good one.